From President Trump's social media account, a racist video depicting former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama as apes in a jungle. Outrage followed before the video was later removed. Tonight, we get to the point.
From Chicago's very own, with WGN political editor Taman Bradley, this is The Point.
Good evening. It's since been taken down, but not before a firestorm. President Trump's social media feed shared this racist clip portraying former President Obama and his wife as apes. People from across the political spectrum condemned the post. Republican Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, who is black, posting on X, praying it was a fake because it's the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House. Other Republicans called for an apology. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker simply said, "Donald Trump is a racist." We reached out to the Illinois Republican Party for comment. They have not responded. The White House said President Trump was not aware of the video and was let down by the staffer who put it out. Before the walkback, though, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt dismissed criticism as fake outrage. An Obama spokesperson says the former president has no response. The clip was part of a longer video promoting unfounded election conspiracies. The offensive imagery is born out of early evolutionary bias that described Africans as a more primitive form of humans. Early on the WGN Evening News, professor and author Michael Eric Dyson had this to say.
The dehumanizing of black people and comparing them to apes is to suggest that they are animals, that they are creatures. People have remarked in the past that Michelle Obama didn't belong in Vogue magazine. She belonged in National Geographic. This is the attempt to articulate and re-articulate a vicious belief that black people are not worthy of human consideration, that they are fundamentally animals, that they are closer and more akin to a state of nature where they must be somehow civilized and brought from their African home and brought here to America under the penalty of white supremacy to be made into whole human beings. Donald Trump is shameless, and he didn't even apologize. He took it down and blamed it on a staffer, as opposed to saying this is horrendous. We apologize for this even being sent out in their name.
One local Democrat, Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps, called the president's post a distraction.
This is Black History Month, and so we are not going to be baited into a ridiculousness because of that image, because what we're doing in real life is that I spent my morning registering amazing young people about not only their right to vote, but the importance of it. And so while all of that foolishness is going on in cyberspace, in real life, we are registering over 100 young people who are going to be on the front line, who are civically engaged, who are intelligent, who are curious, who want to fight for what's right.
All right, in other news tonight, important developments this week in Illinois' Democratic U.S. Senate primary. Earlier today, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton earned the backing of several local Latino leaders, including Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia.
She understands priorities, and she will be a hell of a fighter in the U.S. Senate.
Instead of taking votes to thank ICE, she's been telling us who she is by telling us that she is ready and willing and wants to abolish ICE right here, right now.
The most recent poll taken earlier this week shows Stratton is trailing Raja Krishnamurthy by 11 points. And we learned this week Governor J.B. Pritzker dished out $5 million to a pro-Stratton super PAC. The governor's cousin gave more than $1 million as well. Attacks between the candidates are intensifying as Election Day grows closer. In case you missed it earlier this week, we asked Tina Sanfandelis of the Chicago Sun-Times to open her reporter's notebook during a conversation in Chicago's Greektown. Tina, it was too cold to go to Sox Park, but this isn't bad.
Yeah, this is one of my natural habitats.
Greek Islands is where we found Chicago Sun-Times national political reporter Tina Sanfandelis after she wrapped up an interview with one of the top Democrats running for U.S. Senate. The seat is a big prize. The contest, endlessly fascinating. Stratton came out swinging during the first debate, the one that you moderated. In the second debate, she seemed to pull her punches. What is her strategy with polls showing her trailing Krishnamurti?
I think she has nothing to lose because polls have shown her trailing by so much that I think she can go as far left as she wants and she can do different performances in different debates.
I want to abolish ICE. It's hard to talk about standing up to ICE when you've received funding from some of the same technology companies that are helping them carry out their terror.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Stratton has been elected to statewide office twice. Why didn't she start this contest as the front runner?
I think money. I know it sucks to say that, but Raja has so much money. We talked about how prolific he is in fundraising, how easy it is for him to fundraise. So just call people that he knows and ask him. It's a big part of his life. And if you're a member of Congress, you're doing that every year because your term is so short. So I think he just established this really good system, and the money did make a difference because he's been up since last summer.
I'm running for the United States Senate to restore.
My mother tells me, she recites his commercials to me. She says, you know, how that he's from Peoria and he's on food stamps and that there's 29 letters in his last name. She sees it on her, she's a YouTube person, she sees it every day. So all of that strategy of like blanketing the airwaves, digital TV, everything for months, I think is helping him a lot.
We moved to Peoria and we moved to the middle class. And every night at the dinner table, my father would say, think of the greatness of this country, and whatever the two of you do, my brother and me, make sure it's there for the next families who need it.
Robin Kelly routinely points to committees, subcommittees, studies she's done. Does that make her stand out?
I do. I think it's experience. You know, like she's conversational, she's easy to listen to.
I'm a dedicated public servant. I've been in Congress 12 and a half years. And I'm running for U.S. Senate to make your life better and more affordable.
She's not kind of pointing too many fingers at her competitors, so I think that might resonate to some people who want kind of like a calm candidate to support. So I think she has that.
Kelly and Governor Pritzker had a dust-up over control of the state party. How badly does she want to beat his lieutenant governor?
I don't know how much of a factor that is. I feel like she's not as petty as that. I feel like I think this is kind of an end of career goal for her.
Is the governor all in for Stratton?
Reporter to reporter, we've been talking about this for months, right? Like, what's Governor Pritzker going to do to support her? He did endorse her immediately. He has appeared with her, but he's just a billionaire governor who self-funds, so you assume that if he really wanted to help someone, we would know about it.
And we're back in 60 seconds. The Chicago Bears are weighing their options for a new home, either in Illinois or Indiana. A new stadium could come with a lot of perks, including the chance to host a future Super Bowl. Last night we checked in with Lawrence Holmes, radio host on The Score. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you might be hearing, because privately, what I'm hearing from sources is that Arlington Heights looks pretty good, particularly if the legislature can figure out some help with the property tax bill and also the infrastructure. Does that square with what you're hearing?
Yes, that things look better. I think that the Bears have done a very effective job of using the pressure and leverage of what Indiana might give them to help in this regard. But also, I talked to people down in Springfield that said that they were a lot closer than the Bears led the public to believe in the first place. And there were some logistical things that just weren't done properly that now, with the benefit of time and experience, the Bears have a better hold on what it is they're asking for.
Indiana may be real, it may not be. Do you think it really sped things up? But it sounds like privately, this thing might have been closer than the Bears led us to believe.
It was closer, but I will say, and I still believe that it's not 0% that the Bears end up in Indiana. I think that Indiana gives them something that they have been waiting for, what all NFL owners are waiting for. They want to have their own campus. They want to have control. They want to get the sweetheart deal that Kansas gave the Chiefs to move over the state line. They want all those things. And if Indiana is going to give them the better deal, I don't know that we should even begrudge George and Kevin if they want to take that deal. If they're getting the land development and they're getting someone to pay for their building, which is something that the Illinois legislation is saying that's not what we're going to do. We will help you out on infrastructure, we'll help you out on taxes, but we're not going to build your building. Indiana might offer them a sweetheart deal. And if that's the case, I'm not going to be mad at them for taking it.
Kevin Warren, certainly the #1 goal would be to win the Super Bowl. 1A is getting the stadium, right?
Well, the idea was that he was coming in as a rainmaker from the successful television bid that he put together for the Big Ten Network and running that conference, that he would come in and it would make things easier. Now, to his credit, I think that he has streamlined a lot of the processes that the Bears have had on the football side. And that ends up with them hiring Ben Johnson. I thought that Kevin Warren was instrumental in changing the way that the Bears went about their hiring process. But he was really brought in here to get this stadium deal done. And when he said, hey, we're going to get shovels in the ground in 2025, and it doesn't happen, I imagine that there are some questions about how it is. But I also think that he was put in a terrible spot when he got the job because they had already bought the plot of land in Arlington Heights. And because of that, that takes away some of the leverage that you would have had if the Bears were just looking for a site. But now I think it's probably closer to happening than not.
Before we go, please indulge this proud dad. My oldest daughter, Mia, who is close to 3 years old this week, celebrated a milestone. She did something for the first time ever that requires training, something toddlers her age have to learn, something we all had to learn. So tonight, we tip our hat to Mia, all the toddlers learning, and all the parents teaching. And that is the point. I'm Tamon Bradley. More news right here tonight at 9, but first, the Chicago Auto Show. Good night.